Austin, and welcome back to Real Estate of Mine for another episode. We are so glad to have you. Today is actually kind of a special episode because today I get to introduce you to my new partner in crime, Miss Jill Levine. She's my new real estate partner, and I'm so excited to have her here on the show. And today's show is actually sponsored by Cross Country Mortgage with Michael Abram, who's also one of these fabulous lenders who's been on the show a couple of times, and the products, and if you haven't seen his episode, it's really wonderful. So now then, let's get to our guest, Jill Levine. So Jill Levine, I'm so excited you're here. We actually probably have more fun together than two agents probably should or could have, but it's a good thing.
True. It's true.
So Jill has been in the real estate business for a really long time, really, and we were very attracted, same sensibilities of real estate, but I want the people to know I know her story, but I want you to tell the people your story and how you got into real estate.
Thanks for having me on, Jamie. You could probably tell my story better than I can, even though I've lived it. But basically, my husband and I bought our first home in 2001. We lived in it and fixed it up over the years. Mm-hmm. And then we flipped it when we found a property where we could build our own custom home, which we've now been living in for the past 15 years.
Wow.
So that began our interest in real estate. And then building our home was an experience that we loved. We had a great experience building our own home. And after reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it just kind of it started our interest in developing some passive income streams, basically.
That's amazing. And you know that's not the first time on this show that book has been mentioned.
Yeah,
I've read
great
it.
Book.
Alvin Yui has read it, and it's been actually on the show several times. And so it's a very inspirational book. Definitely. And tell people where you built your custom home.
So we built our home in Manhattan Beach.
And not an easy place to find a plot of land to build a home.
Yeah, it took us, probably 4 years before we found an actual place to build.
And that's where your personal residence is. And then what that spurred on was actually you guys have been investing in out of state. Right.
That's true.
Yep.
We looked to invest locally, but we just couldn't find properties that were going to cash flow. So basically, I shared this with a friend of mine who's a broker, and he told us of a team that he had, friends that he had in Texas, that basically they were turnkey brokers and property managers.
Okay.
So we kind of hooked up with them. Over the course of the past 10 years, we've purchased 6 homes and a triplex. And the team we've been working with out there has been excellent with communication, and they've connected us to their network. It's been a great experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I know that, because living in California, the one thing that most people come out here is that they kind of deal with the sticker shock of California taxes. It's the volume of being able to go out and buy 10 properties for most people is just not feasible. And when Jill uses the phrase cash flow, what that means is by the time you buy the property, pay the taxes, and you might have to do improvements, meaning like get it ready to rent, and then you find the tenants in there. By the time they're paying the rent, you've paid the taxes, got it all together. Are you actually making enough off the rent?
That's right.
To be in profit? Not just breaking even, but being a little bit in profit. And that profit may be $25 a month to a couple of hundred.
That's right.
But it's a long-term play. So even if you're making a couple of hundred a month, to some investors, that's considered a good thing.
Yeah.
And eventually, of course, you want to get to where you're making hundreds a month or thousands a month.
That's right.
Cash flow. But that's the formula. Did you and your husband work out a formula to kind of see what would be worthwhile for you guys to invest?
We do. So for all the properties we've purchased, we follow something called a BRRRR strategy.
Oh.
And BRRRR means we buy the property, we rehab it, we rent it, and we refinance it.
Oh,
and then
okay.
Wash and repeat. I mean,
Wash
you kind
and
of
repeat.
just do the same thing.
Fantastic.
So,
because the thing is that I guess where people think they get stuck is they think once they get a mortgage on it that they're going to have to stay with that mortgage for the 30 years. Nobody is really staying with a mortgage 30 years.
That's right.
They're going to take the money out, use it, and wash and repeat and know that they can refinance. So when rates change, they take advantage of the market. And that's why for the last 10 years, it's been amazing because the rates have been so low, you could wash and repeat a lot faster.
Right.
And that may not be quite the case now, but still, when you think about real estate as a long-term investment, then you're in a much better place mind-wise because it is, they say, diversify your portfolio. Don't put everything in stocks. Don't put everything in one thing. And always usually invest in real estate because then that's one thing that will long-term usually hold up and is a guarantee to get you good returns.
That's right.
Yep. So is Texas the only state that you've invested in?
No. So, pardon me. We bought another house in order to diversify. We bought another house in St. Louis.
Okay.
And it was 2 months before the pandemic. And we followed the same strategy that we had on our Texas properties. We hooked up with this management company that found the tenant for us.
Okay.
But
that's part of what they do.
Yep. They
right?
found the tenant. And after a few months, this tenant, due to COVID, stopped paying rent.
Which was very kind of common.
It really was. And at the time, due to COVID, there was a moratorium on evictions, but also a lot of states had funding for people that needed that. So after about 3 years of inconsistent rental payments and state funding, we had to evict our tenant.
Okay.
So that happened, but the house was vandalized and we're currently rehabbing it.
Wow.
It was a mess.
Now, I kind of, because Jill and I work together, I kind of know this story. And this story was kind of, this really was not any fault of them, the owners. It was part of a what I would call a perfect storm. Part of it was COVID and the fact that the government did bail out renters at the time. It was supposed to really help renters who had lost income due to not being able to work. So overall, it was a program that really was supposed to help renters, right? But there were also renters who took really severe advantage of that program that the government was giving them assistance for. And what ended up happening is her tenants in there just not only quit paying the rent, but once they quit paying the rent, the management company, unbeknownst to the owners, so the tenants weren't paying rent at all, right? So that's one thing. But then when they got some assistance, they were on their way to evicting the tenant, right? Which they had every right to do for non-payment, right? That's their right as landlords. But then once the assistance came and they accepted a rent check, once the landlord and or the management company cashes a rent check, that is in essence re-signing up the lease. And you guys didn't know that. Is that correct? Did I say that correctly?
Well, basically, so the year had gone by. It was time to renew the lease. And basically, you can go month to month or renew the lease for another year. And we wanted to evict the tenant. It just wasn't working. She really had never paid the rent ever, really.
Yeah.
I think a couple months in the beginning, and then that was it. So it was just a bad fit, bad tenant situation. So basically, the management company just thought because she was in the black, she was now out of the red, her rent had been paid. Mm-hmm. Instead of just seeing that this wasn't a good fit, they just signed her for another year. Another year lease.
And these guys didn't know about that.
Right.
And they were like, oh my God, you've stuck us with this really bad tenant.
Right.
For another year. Right. So they had to kind of honor that lease. And then when the time had come when the lease was up, what ended up happening is they were like, the management company was like, okay, well, I guess the lease is kind of up. So, okay. And then by the time they got a look at the property, like she said, was vandalized. It was severely in disrepair is like one thing. Like it's one thing when you expect like a couple scratches on the walls, but like it was to the tune of, normally you accept a deposit for normal wear and tear. When a tenant leaves, you hope that they clean it up and you might, remove some of the deposit if there's any, external wear and tear or something like that. But that's not what this tenant did. This tenant,
this was thousands of dollars.
To the tune of over $10,000.
That's
so
right.
This is not even a small claims they couldn't even go to small claims for it because the fee was too large.
No, this is when your homeowner's insurance kicks in.
Exactly.
This is why you have homeowners, right?
Yes, exactly. So it's a twofold lesson. One, homeowners insurance is very important. Another
Right.
thing is, if you are a landlord, you demand that your tenant, I always say, you make sure that they better have renter's insurance. A lot of tenants do not demand, a lot of landlords do not demand that their tenants require renter's insurance. And I think that they should for that very reason, because if something goes south, there has to be some accountability there on both sides, right? Fortunately, that you guys had the homeowner's insurance. But the other fault of it was it's like she had a dream situation in Texas with a really spot on, property management company and people that really knew their job and knew how to do it really well. And then to diversify the portfolio, they went into a completely other state thinking the situation would be the same, and it was not. And the management company there was not as good at communicating with them. And what that led to was lapses in communication where there was months that would go by without you guys really being informed about how awful the tenant was and about how many months went by with not knowing, what the situation was going to be like.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when we bought the first house, it was right before the lockdown and the pandemic.
Tough time.
So it was
nobody knew it. And nobody knew that was coming.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it was tough. And even for the management company, their level of service, I guess, just shifted and changed.
Yeah.
I mean, people were coming and going. First, this person would be in charge of, our account and our property. And then that person was no longer there. And there was just a lot of change.
And turnover.
You bet. Yeah.
I bet.
It was sad, really.
And that was the case with almost every industry.
Right.
And so it was like everybody took
Everyone
a hit.
was feeling it.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet. And then you and I have talked a lot about, I would say before we move on to anything else, what advice would you give? Because you guys have actually really got a model that's worked. And with your triplex, you use the same formula and you've actually got a team of people that you really trust.
We do.
And you
Yes.
kind of really check in with the same kind of crew. To see who's doing what, when, where, all over the United States.
Right.
So what advice would you give? Because, some people don't necessarily have a team like you guys are really successful with having a team.
It's good to have a team in place. It's good to work with people that are local. It's good to have a network of people that who have worked maybe in that city before.
Yep.
Referrals are key.
Referrals are key. And sometimes I would say, if you don't have a network of people that you know and trust, sometimes when you're making an investment out of state, it's good to have somebody locally in that state.
Right.
Like family members or really good friends, maybe somebody you were in business with or went to college with or something like that, so that you've got eyes on the ground,
Yeah, the more people that can work with your team, the more leverage you have for good service, because they know you, they don't want to lose those clients. Ideally, you really want a mentor or someone who has done this before that you
Right.
can learn from.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point. Even looping in just somebody who's had this experience before.
Exactly.
And that could be just offering to take somebody for coffee or lunch.
That's
to
right.
See how do you do this? Where did you start?
That's right. And if you don't have, you've got to interview these people. You've got to go with your gut. You've got to, just like you and I did when we met each other, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's just like that.
We had to date a little bit.
Not for too long.
Not for too long. I didn't hold out for too long.
A lot of it is trusting your gut.
No, true.
It really is.
Yeah.
And
I think the other thing is at least with investing with this team, I think you find out you don't have to always go it alone either.
That's right.
Investing in properties, I'm finding out there are families that are investing in a property and there's 3 or 4.
Yeah, even
people.
Going in with your girlfriends.
Yeah. Yep. So there's.
I'm sure down the road you and I are going to be doing some investing together.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's ways to go about it now to split the costs.
Yes.
Really learn from somebody. So I think the thing is, we obviously know California is one of the most expensive states to live in. We're just it is what it is.
Right.
But Texas is not so much. Florida is not so much. And there's other states that are obviously tax friendly. Nevada is another state that's tax friendly. So there's the reason why people are looking outside of the state of California for investment properties.
Right.
Now, we happen to live in one of the most beautiful states that there is in the union. And oddly enough, Jill and I are both from Texas, which is partly why we both got along so well. Yeah. Houston girl and Dallas girl.
That's right.
So, there is that we have in common. And we also love our home state as well. So we get this background and we understand why people are moving and would want to invest in both places.
Right.
So she's actually got a network of individuals in Texas, that she knows and trusts. And actually she's the places that she's invested in is in Dallas.
Yeah.
So it's like where I know and have boots on the ground. And that was one of the areas that we look at.
Right.
And, my husband and I have done the same thing. We've got a formula and you want to look at things like, what businesses are investing in the city? Like, is tech involved? Are big banks coming to town? What is the rent ratio to the income ratio to the population?
That's right.
All of those things will play.
Jobs growth.
All of those things you can find statistics online. You don't even have to look very far. Like, I know that, it's one of those deep dives that we do usually, if not every night, pretty much almost every night. We go on YouTube and find out, all right, so what are the best cities to invest in? What are the stats they're looking at? What are the cities that are least likely to invest in? And we look at all those formulas and what everybody's, and then Jill and I are talking about it all the time.
Every day.
Every day. That's what we do. And also because this is how we help our clients. Like, clients are like, well, I've got a lot of equity in my house. What do I do with it? I don't know that I could buy another place in California. And we're like, well, you don't have to stay in California. We can help you outside of California.
Right. Just like, our friend who moved to Vegas.
That's right.
We just helped her go from Colorado to Vegas.
That's exactly right. And so there's ways that we can help clients in any state.
That's right.
And that's because it's also fascinating to us to watch this interesting migration of people invest all over and all for very different reasons.
That's right.
Like, sometimes we've got, people in Jill's neighborhood. She's about to be an empty nester, if I can say so. Like,
sure.
3 beautiful kids, gorgeous kids, smart kids, well-adjusted, which is really, that's a feat unto itself these days. But well-adjusted kids about to go off to college. She's done her job well. And now they're like, wow, now we're like, some people at this point are looking, do we want to move to a college town to be closer to kids? Or are we waiting to wait for grandkids to maybe we want to pick up and move to be closer to grandkids? Or is it, woohoo, we got an empty house. Woo, let's go explore and see what's the next chapter look like for us. Or is it like, wow, it's my first time actually having some expendable income. What do I do with it?
I don't think we're going to have expendable income because we're going to have all 3 kids in college.
3 kids is different. Yeah, your situation is different.
I can't wait for that moment. I can't.
Where the kids
I'm
are
really looking forward to that.
Can I get a sweater and an ice cream, please?
No.
Not this month. Not this month. You have to wait till Christmas. Oh my God. That's true. I don't know. I don't know what
No, but I hear what you're saying. It's true. We are in that phase and we are thinking, do we stay? Do we follow the children? We'll wait and see where they settle. We are open. We are open to, being a property owner in Southern California is an amazing feat in itself,
yes,
right?
It is.
It's amazing.
My God.
To let go of that, I don't know if we will. Maybe we will, keep our place and lease it and then, figure out the rest.
We were having this conversation just the other day and I was looking online and it was hilarious because I just was like, I told my husband, I was like, I'm so hard pressed to leave Southern California because
it's perfect.
It's perfect. The weather is great. I wake up and I can ride my bike to the beach in 10 minutes.
We love this.
It's going to be, I've lived here now longer here than I have in any other place.
Yeah, me too.
And I absolutely love it. I love it. It's like I have mountains in like an hour, 2.5 hours. I got the beach. I got the desert.
We can always come back, but sometimes change is good. Change is growth.
Change is growth. Maybe I just move like 7 miles away or something. I don't know. But the more I explore, and that's what I said. So we decided, that we're going to, pick a list of about 10 to 20 towns, and we're going to hop on and check them all out.
Explore. Yeah.
Explore.
It's great.
I think what we decided is we'll always have a place in Southern California for sure, just because we love it so much. But that kind of naturally leads into the other part of the conversation, which you and I have been talking about. And that is, I hate to say it, but climate change.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
So, we've been looking about all the formulas for what cities are great to move in because of growth and industry, formulas and all that stuff. And I
Right.
could tell you that Raleigh and Charleston, North Carolina are great cities because they're expected to have, the census growth predicts them at growing at 24% and 23% coming in the next census in 2030. However, they're also going to be hit with more natural disasters. North Carolina is one of those states. So is Texas. So is Florida. And there was a new study that was out that said, especially actually Texas, because they do a rating with how many natural disasters in the last, I think it's like the last 10 years that they've been hit with. And it hits them monetarily as well as like what kind of disasters wipe them out. So Texas gets tornadoes and hurricanes, freezes and the electrical grid that got knocked out.
Right.
All of that stuff was
How weird
really
was that?
huge.
Yeah. Yes.
And so it took a real financial toll on the state. So that was really interesting. But the global warming thing, like it's not to be henny penny, the sky is falling, like the United States is not going to be underwater in the next 30 years. There will be some sea level risings, which mean there'll be more flooding in certain areas. However, they were saying like most people were like snowbirds and stuff who had to deal with really extreme winters were traveling to the south. That's where they were investing to retire. But because the heat levels are rising, those normal states where people were retiring, i.e. Florida, Texas, Arizona, California, they said that line is now potentially moving up.
Yeah.
So, and we were looking at, states like Nevada. And then, my parents used to live in Nevada in Boulder City. And I was like, and we actually did a tour of Lake Las Vegas. And I was like, there's water. Where is the water coming?
Yeah.
I mean,
there's reports on Lake Mead actually going down.
Yeah.
I know. It's
interesting.
Water is a problem.
Water's an interesting thing. And I know
is.
there's like,
It's
we're
crazy.
going to, thank God we got the wettest winter we've had in California. Like actually this 2022 winter
Right.
and early beginning 2023 was the wettest winter / storm season
Right.
in California that I've seen in the entire time I've ever
Oh, me too.
lived here.
I think we caught up as far as drought, but that doesn't last long.
No, it doesn't.
And we don't know how climate change has changed in the way that, are we going to get more storms like this? Is this a natural occurrence, or do we have another 5 years of drought?
Yeah, we don't know. The one thing that they say that you can count on, though, is the insurability has gone up. So obviously, because California's now had more consistent fires,
Right.
Like I know people that have left their homes in Brentwood and in the hills in Los Angeles area because the fire insurance is too expensive.
Oh, right.
They couldn't get insurance. If you weren't grandfather claused into an insurance policy, buying a new home and getting a new fire insurance policy was incredibly difficult or incredibly expensive.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting to kind of keep an eye on that. So we were talking about where to look in the United States for investing. So we're kind of like now kind of bumping up, even they said they were like, oh, I think probably, Tucson or Phoenix is going to be a great place to move to. And then they were like, please don't come to Tucson or Phoenix. We've got no water. And all those brand new developments, all those developments. And I saw it on the news, like they got that brand new development out there and they've got no water for it. They tapped out the underwell that they thought they would have. And then they're like, nope, no water. And they have nowhere to
Too
go
much
with
or
it.
not enough? I
Too
don't
much.
know.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. So lots of things to consider, when investing out of state.
That's right.
Or even potentially thinking about retiring and
That's
moving
right.
out of state or staying in state.
You're right. Yeah.
I think it's going to be interesting to learn about. I think the further we get, like doing anything you can to learn about sustainable living and just even kind of incorporating that in your daily life as best as you can is going to be starting to become more and more prevalent, I think, in every
I agree with you. I agree.
In everyday living. So it's going to be interesting. Going forward with your management of your properties. So you had most of the experiences you've had have been really positive. So what would you say now in hindsight to someone that's like just going to start baby investing, and let's say they've got the courage to really dip their toe into it?
Sure.
What would you say to somebody that's like, what would you say if they were going to interview like a management team or something? What would you say? Make sure they ask that question or make sure they do this.
Okay. Well, it's crucial to know people locally who you can trust.
Okay.
I guess if you don't know that, maybe you want to get references from people.
Okay.
Okay. So you want to get references.
Would you take the time
people
to go
that
down
have had
and interview them if you don't know them?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think,
okay.
or you can do a Zoom chat. You can get them on the phone or go in person.
Okay.
I think that's really key in getting something steady, something that's going to work for you. You've got to vibe the person. So if you can't get there, if it is out of state far, you can't get there, then get on Zoom.
Yeah.
Get on there, talk to them. Ideally, you want a mentor or someone that has done this successfully that you can learn from. Mm-hmm. That's what you want to create,
Yep.
So you can avoid some of the pitfalls.
Yep.
Sometimes they even look good and then just situations change.
Yep.
St. Louis looked good for us, but then due to the pandemic, everything shifted.
Yeah, and you couldn't have seen that coming. Nobody
We
saw
just
it coming.
couldn't. We didn't. I mean,
Yeah.
we had to go with the flow. Now we're paying for it, but we'll get through it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Are you going to re-rent the place or are you going to sell the place?
I think we're going to sell it.
Okay.
I think
All
we're
right.
going to sell it.
All right. Okay.
Do a 1031 exchange, and that's another show. We're not getting into
That is
today.
another show, but that's an exciting show.
Yes.
We will get a 1031 exchange person in here, and a 1031 is, if you don't know what that is a way to defer paying taxes on selling a place. So when a place is not your primary residence and you really start to get into investing, a way to build your wealth portfolio is to keep doing 1031 exchanges and to keep exchanging up a property and diversifying your portfolio, and you don't have to pay taxes as long as you do a 1031 exchange and keep moving it and keep moving it. You keep paying out the taxes by doing a 1031 exchange. And it's a really smart thing to do. And you have to use a 1031 exchange coordinator, and they work with escrow and they coordinate it and they hold the monies for you in escrow, and you have a certain amount of time to identify another property while you're selling the one you've got. And then once that property you own goes into escrow, you have 180 days, I believe, to identify and get into escrow and sell the other property. But it's a very exciting prospect and is definitely a very smart thing to do. So we're on it. We're on it. I bet you are. All right. So that'll be another show that we'll do.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you so much for being on the show. This was really informative. And if you guys have any questions, I always forget this, but be sure to check us out. You will see Jill's face now on all of our social media. We check us out on the YouTube channel. We are going to be doing now the Real Estate of Mind. We're definitely not only on the UB and Go show, but we also are on their Hulu channel. And then we're on the YouTube Real Estate of Mind. We are now taking the shows and putting them in little bite-sized pieces so that you can kind of check them out in 2-minute bite sizes. And check us out on Instagram on My City of Angels and also on OC and Me, because not only do we cover Los Angeles, but we also cover all of Orange County. We're known as the Beach City Realtors for you. And we're also on Facebook. Just check us out. And if you need anything, we'd like to be there for you as a resource because we love having you guys. Please like us, subscribe, and comment, because without you, there'd be no us. And that's the deal. So come back next time for Real Estate of Mine, and we'll see you next time.